1883, Francis Galton, a cousin of Charles Darwin, published a book titled Inquiries into Human Faculty and Its Development. In it, Galton put forth a claim that certain human traits, like intelligence, are inheritable and that we could create better versions of humanity through a term he called eugenics, or selective breeding of individuals to pass along those traits. Even more troubling, he suggested that certain races and groups were inherently inferior and should not continue having children. But before we can evaluate his claims, let's first talk about the idea of race itself. In 2003, the Human Genome Project fully mapped human DNA and revealed something profound. Humans are 99.9% genetically identical. Even more striking, the genetic variation within racial groups is greater than the variation between them. In simpler terms, if Galton's claims were true, we should see clear genetic markers defining race and measurable differences tied to them. But we don't. Modern science shows that race is not a biological category, but a social construct shaped by history, politics, and culture, not genes. This means Galton's argument didn't start from a scientific foundation. It started from a social assumption, the belief that races are not only different, but have measurable superior or inferior traits. From that flawed starting point, he tried to build scientific conclusions. Unfortunately for him, both his assumptions and conclusions have been thoroughly debunked. Let's turn now to his key claim, that intelligence is largely inherited. Today, we know that intelligence, as measured by IQ, is probabilistic, not deterministic. While there's a heritable component, environmental factors play a massive role. Galton argued that twins were the perfect group to study because they're genetically alike, and that nature, or genes, plays a bigger role than nurture, or environment. But his methods were shaky. In his book, for an example, he simply asked parents what their kids were like, then concluded that similarities must come from genetics using no form of scientific measurement. In 2003, psychologist Eric Turkheimer directly challenged this idea of nature over nurture with his paper, Socioeconomic Status Modifies Heritability of IQ in Young Children. Turkheimer's team analyzed IQ scores from a sample of 7-year-old twins across different socioeconomic backgrounds. Their results were clear. In poor families, 60% of the variance in IQ came from the shared environment, and the genetic contribution was near zero. In affluent families, the pattern was reversed. Genes played a stronger role, and environment mattered less, because these kids already had access to stable, supportive conditions. This completely contradicts Galton's idea that hereditary traits shape intelligence. If Galton was truthful, he would have come to this conclusion without the knowledge we had today by simply studying the environment of the same groups he eventually discriminated against. Galton's flawed ideas didn't just stay in the academic world. In the 1920s, eugenics became a widely adopted philosophy across the world. In the United States, this led to sterilization policies targeting people based on race, disability, and poverty. It's estimated that thousands of people, especially in the South, were forcibly sterilized under the guise of improving the population, a practice that continued into the 1970s. In Nazi Germany, eugenics fueled a campaign of racial cleansing, aiming to create a so-called Aryan master race. The consequences were catastrophic. Over 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust, 400,000 people were sterilized, and 250,000 disabled people were systematically killed. Just like Galton, the Nazis pushed the idea that a perfect human could be created by eliminating those they saw as inferior. Understanding the deep flaws in these ideologies matters because it shows how misinformation can lead to discrimination, violence, and the deaths of millions. One lie told in 1883 became the seed for some of the worst atrocities in human history. We must always examine the philosophy behind scientific claims, question biased assumptions, and remember that human worth is not something written into our DNA. If we truly want to push humanity forward, it won't come from selective breeding or exclusion. It will come from creating better environments for everyone, especially those who stand to gain the most from meaningful change.